Hello, everyone. Hola todos. Welcome to the Tiki Tapas podcast, where we talk about Spanish football in English. I am La Liga Vic, as you guys know me from Instagram, and I am joined by my co-host, as you all know him, La Liga London, my friend Rahul. Rahul, welcome. It's been a project that we've been discussing for a while now, and I'm so excited to finally get this off the ground.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've both been creating content on Instagram, Twitter, writing. We're both journalists, content creators. We both focus on Spanish football.
Yeah.
I'm now currently living in Spain. Vic has lived in Spain before. And we decided that we should put two great minds together to talk about football in Spain.
Yeah, you're right. And apart from the common element that we share of our love for Spanish football, we also share another common element that we struggle with visas for Spain. So hopefully through this podcast, something like that will change and I can come back to Spain soon. So I'm looking forward to starting this episode and let's see where this journey takes us.
Yep, let's get right into it. It was a busy weekend of La Liga action. We're filming this just after a weekend in which Sevilla and Betis drew in El Gran Derbi.
Hmm.
My team, Villarreal, were battered by Vic's team, Barcelona. And there was a
Oh,
whole load of other drama at Levante and where else was there? Oviedo. And it was a
oh.
chaotic weekend.
It was crazy, really. Yeah, it was a good week for football overall.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it was brilliant. I think let's get right into it. So I think given the allegiance of our teams, we should start with Barcelona Villarreal. And I got to say, I was pretty annoyed at the game. Not so much at the result, not so much that Lamine Yamal scored a hat trick. Um, he's an unstoppable player for
Yes,
most
just
defenders.
saying. Yeah.
But at any point, Vic, as a Barcelona fan, did you feel in any danger that Villarreal were going to even score a goal or get a shot on target at least?
Before the game, but once
Seriously?
the game, yeah, once the game started, and like I mean, dude, there were just too many spaces for Barca players to exploit. Especially down the flanks. I mean, it was they could not catch Lamine Yamal. They could not catch the overlapping ones from Kunde, and I was before the game. I kind of was like a bit. I would say pessimistic because Villarreal, I know they haven't won any big games this season, but they're still third. They were still third in the table. And it just takes one bad day for Barcelona to just, lose their grip on the top of the table. But honestly, after the first goal went in, when I saw Lamine Yamal, because you see the first two goals that Yamal scored, they came out of nothing. And he was just toying with the Villarreal defenders as if he was on like a training pitch. And so when you are allowing probably the best young player in the world right now so much time and space to just like collect himself and do the things he wants to do, you're never going to have a chance, honestly. And yeah, it kind of like upset me because I like the football that Marcelino is playing at Villarreal. But honestly, this fixture seeing Barcelona and Yamal score his hat trick was wonderful. But from Villarreal, I probably expected a bit more, and I'm sure you did as well.
Yeah, I mean, going into the fixture, I actually thought Villarreal were probably the best suited team to exploit Barcelona's high line and the space in behind. Villarreal are the best counter-attacking team in the league for me, and with the speed they have up front, with Molero in the form he's in, I expected a bit more. And it's been a common theme in Villarreal's big games this season that there's been just such a lack of threat where they've sat back and tried to soak up the pressure and hit on the counter. But as soon as the first goal goes in, they almost wither away. And I thought Villarreal started okay, not amazingly, but not badly. And there were a couple of occasions where Pepe got in behind with the high line. That was the key theme I was looking at before.
Mhm,
But then, yeah, the moment Lamine just ran through,
mhm.
there was no stopping it. And before the game, Villarreal left back Sergi Cardona, he was speaking about his excitement about playing against Lamine, his first time in the Camp Nou, and how to stop him. And unfortunately for him, he just got ripped to shreds.
Yeah,
I do think the team selection was a bit wrong for Marcelino. I thought Jose Perez, and we'll get onto this in a minute, I thought he shouldn't have started, and he was a disaster. And there was no support for the fullbacks either, where Cardona was exposed, but there was absolutely no tracking for him from Molero. And with Lamine, you've got to double up on him. And
yeah.
that's the way to stop him. And leaving him 1v1 every time is a recipe for disaster.
Yeah, you're 100% right. I mean, I know a lot of Villarreal fans were not happy with Iota Perez. I mean, I've been like looking up at the fan feeds, and including you, a lot of fans have been vocal about Perez and the team structure in general. So, but Barcelona, if you look at them now, they beat Villarreal twice now over the season, and the first game was supposed to be held in Miami, but it didn't happen in Miami. It happened at Ceramica, and now, of course, this fixture as well. What do you think is an ideal position to expect for Villarreal to end up at the end of the league season? Because at one point they were certain, I was certain, because Atleti were also behind them, not able to catch up. But Atleti has now overtaken them on goal difference. So Atleti and Villarreal both are on 51 points. What do you think is an ideal scenario? Villarreal, can they probably leapfrog Atleti again, go to third, or will they fall back down? What do you think?
Well, I think fourth should be absolute certainty now. There are so many points ahead of Betis.
Mhm.
Third should be the aim because Villarreal tanked down the Champions League badly, tanked
Mhm.
down the Copa del Rey badly. Atletico is still in both competitions. They've
Mhm.
potentially got a final if they can see off the threat of Barcelona,
Mhm.
and they're in the Champions League. They've got Tottenham, right? So not the most difficult tie, but um, they put it this way: they've got harder fixtures. They've got a lot more games to play,
Right.
and they're still level on points. I think third should be the aim. I think Villarreal are a consistent team when it comes to beating the teams expected to.
Mhm.
The final game of the season is Villarreal against Atletico, so that could be a straight shootout for third place. And I
That'd
think
be
it
so
would be
cool.
very disappointing if Villarreal just tank out from here, having one game a week. I don't see any reason why they shouldn't be finishing third. But the football for me has got to improve a bit. I think there's the unhappiness with some people at Villarreal is not so
Mhm.
much the results, because results have been good in the league. It's been one of the,
Yeah.
statistics best
Yeah.
ever campaign for Villarreal. But it's the lack of just being able to land even a single punch in these games. But what I will say about the Barcelona game is that as little as Villarreal gave, there was an opportunity to equalise. And at 2-1 was actually Villarreal's best uh, section of the game, if you will. Like, that's when they had a bit of attacking impetus. And
Mhm.
Jose Perez actually went through.
Yeah.
Around
Joan Garcia. Yeah.
there were one or two, possibly two defenders kind of in the way, but essentially an open goal from outside the box. But
Mhm.
all he has to do is hit the target. Then it's 2-2. Barcelona would be rattled, and Villarreal would have a belief that they can go and get a point. He
Mhm.
puts it wide. And at that point, I'm thinking, what is the point of playing him? If he's there as a finisher, as an experienced striker, he's not going to
Right.
do the hard running that, say, Tanny would. He's not going to do tracking back that Buchanan would if he was in the team.
Right.
He's not the skillful output dribbler that Mikhail Tadze is. So
Right.
he's there. He's only in the team to finish the chances.
Mhm.
And if he can't finish from an open goal, then what is the point of playing him? And I'm sounding a bit harsh there. Like, Ioza is a good player. He was
Yeah.
brilliant last season. But right now, I couldn't believe that team selection. And I was on my knees. I had my head in my hand when you can't put it wide from there. I'm sorry. That is unacceptable.
Yeah, and there's an argument to be had that maybe if Villarreal had converted the chance and put Barcelona under a little bit of pressure, because Barcelona this season haven't been as as convincing as they were in holding on to leads or like finishing games as they were last season under Flick. So a little bit of pressure on Barcelona, especially in this crucial time when Real Madrid are chasing them just 1 point behind. That probably would have made Hansi Flick think about some decisions, and maybe he would have brought someone on, brought someone off. But it's just what if, what if he had converted that chance, and because it's really difficult to tell. Because I personally think if that chance would have been converted, there's a good chance that either Villarreal would have continued putting on more pressure on Barcelona, or Barcelona would just like, because they're fearless. Barcelona would not be like, okay, yeah, we're gonna sit back. And so Barcelona would continue to attack, but Villarreal, the momentum that they would have had, the confidence that they would have gotten, and if they could just manage to beat that high line one time after that, you never know. Villarreal might have been sitting on 54 points now and third in the league.
Yeah. And Villarreal won their last two at the Camp Nou, scoring 8 goals.
Oh yeah,
Well, not really in Camp Nou, it was at Montjuic.
not the
And
tempo.
away at
Yeah,
Barcelona, they've shown they can win there. And it didn't feel like there was that belief. And maybe if that goal goes in at 2-2, it would have just kind of given everyone a boost and it would have got the attackers thinking to each other, right, there's space here. We've got a chance here. But I think that goes wide. Lamine scores a few minutes later. Pedri comes on, and the rest is history.
right. Of course, you live very close to Villarreal. You live in Valencia, which is like in the community. What do you think are currently like the fans around there feeling about Marcelino? And is there like what's the talk? What do you think? Is he gonna sign a new contract? Is he gonna stay? Because the football, as you say, recently has been not the best, but he's been getting results in the league. It's probably, I think, if I'm not wrong, it's the best points tally they've had at this point of the season in their history. And they look to qualify for the Champions League 2 years in a row now. So the they are meeting the standards, but the football is not that good, as you have said. What do you think about the future of Marcelino?
I hope he stays. And right now, it's all uncertain. No one knows if he's going to sign a new contract or not.
Right.
I don't think the club were too happy with the Champions League campaign, but it also comes with the caveat that
That was horrendous though. 35th.
it
How you
was
cannot
horrendous.
do that. You cannot do that.
There are caveats. And I feel like I'm making excuses, and people kind of roll their eyes when I say, but I'm going to say them.
Right, right.
And the caveat is that a lot of these players, these young players in particular, have never played in the Champions League.
Yeah,
It was a transitional summer. There was a lot of new players coming in.
yeah, yeah.
Not all of them have been good. There's a certain midfielder who's been terrible, and there's and those games came thick and fast. The first kind of 4 or 5 Champions League games were just in the first few weeks with
Mhm.
very little preparation time for each game in between. And there were injuries. Gerard Moreno has proven he's still just top dog at Villarreal, and
I love Gerard Moreno, man. Like
he's a legend. He's Villarreal's greatest ever player, and that's
I love him. I love him. Even though he has a past at Espanyol, I can't not respect him. I mean, I just love that. He has different aura.
yeah.
I can't put my finger on it, but I love it.
And you see it in the stadium when he comes on, when he's playing, like, fans
Yeah,
absolutely love him. And
yeah,
yeah, I think having him in some of these big games against Man City, against Juventus, like, I think it would have made a difference with his
yeah.
experience as well. But I think if Villarreal can kind of get towards a third place finish and Mikel Tadze and Molero keep doing their thing when they're at their very best, then I'm hoping Marcelino stays, signs a new contract, and as you said, be the first ever time Villarreal qualify for the Champions League 2 years in a row. And that can't be understated. The financial benefits, the mental boost it would give, the ability to then cement themselves as the fourth team in Spain or even the third team in Spain this season, and attract players of the quality of Mikel Tadze.
Yeah,
30 million Lyon strikers, international players coming in. And I do think there needs to be an improvement in the Champions League next season. It can't possibly go any worse than 1 point from 8 games. I think more experienced heads need to come in, the kind of players who've been there and done it. When yeah, I could rant about Villarreal for hours, but one thing I will say as well, when I got asked on Twitter, X as you call it now,
X.
a while back at the start of this season, which team do I rate more, this or Emery's side? And Emery's side finished 7th in La Liga twice, but won Europa League and got to the Champions League semi-finals. And I think the biggest factor in the Champions League run and the Europa League run were the experienced heads of Raul Albiol and Danny Parejo,
Oh,
Gerard Moreno.
yeah. That trio, though.
Three experienced players, big players, top quality players. And I think there's so much quality in this side. Molero, Pape Gay, Pepe, good players who
Good players.
can perform at the very top. That's why they're third in La Liga, fourth in La Liga now.
Brother, yeah.
But yeah, I think to go that extra mile in Europe against tough teams, against the Man Cities, against Juventus, against well, but there needs to be a kind of figure at the back leading the defense, which Villarreal don't have in Renato Vega, with Juan Foyth injured. It's not the same. And yeah, I think for me, the ideal would be Marcelino stays, some big players come in, go again for top four and improve in the Champions League. I
Right.
don't think changing manager would, I think ripping it all up and starting again with a new
No,
manager, I think
it
he
will
would
always,
in
yeah.
another transitional season, potentially drop out of top four. And it's like, then what was all this progress for anyway? So
Yeah, exactly. Like, I think
I'm
Villarreal right now are in a position where they have the chance to establish themselves as part of the unofficial big four because they've been consistent. I know the big three is Barca, Real, and Atleti, but the fourth spot is always up for grabs. I mean, people say it's Athletic Bilbao. I agree because of their historical background and the amount of trophies they won. I see. I hear it. People say Valencia because they were historic and they're the last team to win La Liga other than the big three. Some people say Sevilla, Real Betis, they've kind of like tried to usurp that position. But I think Villarreal, with the consistency they've showed, they have not, I won't say a concrete argument, but they have a chance of, because a lot of people outside Spain now know Villarreal more than they know any of the other 16 teams. They know Villarreal because of the high profile final against United in the Europa League. Everyone was like shocked, like how could a team that has a population of like less than the Old Trafford, their village is so tiny. When you fly over Villarreal, you just see it's so tiny. And so since then, Villarreal has kind of had like a global sort of identity. And I think if they capitalize on that with good performances and consistency, I think they may very well be a big four or a big five in a couple of years, maybe.
Yeah, and I agree. And also the sides you mentioned, the Sevillas, the Betis, Real Sociedad, Athletic Club,
Mm,
they've all, yeah, we've even had Girona in the top three in the last few years. There's
mhm,
been sides all trying to claim that fourth spot. And they maybe
mm.
do over a season, but then this season in particular, everyone else has kind of been inconsistent.
Yeah,
Athletic Club changing manager, Real Sociedad are
yeah.
now flying high. Sevilla are a mess. Betis are so hit and miss. That in the next year,
Less we
Villarreal
talk about Valencia, the better.
yeah, well, don't even get me started on
You
them.
didn't even mention them.
Yeah, don't even get me.
Who's
That's a
Valencia?
whole story for a different episode. But for context, for listeners who don't know, I live in Valencia, and despite being a Villarreal fan, I go to Valencia and Levante very regularly, and at times it is a very depressing experience. And we might do a whole special episode
Oh
on
yeah.
my adventures in the Valencian region when it comes to watching depressing football.
You were at the Derby, right?
I was at I wasn't at the Villarreal Valencia derby. I was at the Valencia Villarreal derby. I
Ah,
wasn't at there was a kind of mini intra Valencia tournament we could call it the
oh,
last 2 weeks where Villarreal played away at Levante, Valencia played away at Levante, and Valencia played away at Villarreal
mhm.
within a few games of each other. And I was at the Levante Villarreal one. I wasn't at was I? Yeah, I can't even remember. I go to so many games that I
I've been
don't
so
think I
many games, yeah.
remember.
Suffering from success.
Oh yeah, well, if we can call it success. But I was at the Valencia Villarreal Derby de la Comunidad, the
Oof, good
derby of the
pronunciation.
region. Yeah, I did a video on it a while back where my friends still mock my pronunciation of it. So I went over it with my Spanish teacher, and I can now
Right.
pronounce it. But I
Nice.
was at that one in the home end, trying not to celebrate when Villarreal won there for the first time in I think it might be 8 years. First win in Mestalla.
Mhm.
And yeah, Villarreal beat Valencia last week. They won away at Levante. I was there again in a home end trying not to celebrate. And then Levante Valencia was chaos. Valencia won away at Levante. That was the first. That's more of a heated derby. And
Mm.
with Pepelu returning
Yeah.
to Levante for the first time, that was the first because Levante in the second. That was the first Valencian derby in 4 years for at Levante, and I couldn't get a ticket, but it was chaos. It was an absolutely chaotic game, and it's good fun, when they kind of face each other because you do feel a bit of that bite, which you don't often get. You get it when someone like Real Madrid comes to Valencia, they hate each other, you feel the hatred from the fans, same with Sevilla,
Mhm.
but yeah, the Levante when I go there, their fans are pretty sound. Their fans are pretty friendly. They're a pretty welcoming club, except
Mhm,
for when they play Valencia. Like even Villarreal, there's a mutual respect with Levante. Their fans get along really well.
mhm.
But then, yeah, but for me, it's more fun when they don't get along. So
Right.
yeah, we'll save more of that for a Valencia specific
Oh
episode,
yeah,
maybe.
I think there's gonna be one in the future, especially as the relegation battle heats up. I think we might be talking about Valencia more than we would like to, but we'll see about that.
Yeah,
But if we look at the other side of the table, at the top, as I was just mentioning, Valencia is gonna be chasing Atletico now for the third point, and Atletico, as you mentioned, still are in two competitions, Copa del Rey and realistically the Champions League. So what Copa del Rey is gonna be probably, I mean, it's tomorrow as the time of this recording, and they're gonna be going to the Camp Nou with a 4 goal advantage against Barcelona. Quickly, not we won't go into too much detail in this. We will leave it for the viewers and the listeners to talk about this in the comments below. But what do you think, is Barcelona capable now of overturning this? Is there another remontada loading on the cards? Do you think there is a chance?
I
I
can't
think
rule it
yes.
out.
I say
I
yes.
can't rule it out.
I
I
already say
think
yes.
Barcelona have just shown they were able to score four at home.
Right,
Atleti have been the most inconsistent team in world football in the last few weeks.
right.
They've shown they're vulnerable. They won away at Real Oviedo, but Oviedo really gave them a hard time.
There was like
And with Lamine,
95th minute goal or something
yeah, 94th minute goal for Julian Alvarez after
against the
after
20th
Oviedo
team in the side
goals.
in the league as the bottom team.
Yeah, and they've shown that they can be vulnerable. And Lamine is, with the form he's in, with the fact he's now got his first ever career hat trick, he'll be wanting more.
Oh yeah,
And we never know. If there's a
especially
goal.
it's Ramadan. So in Ramadan, he turns into a different beast. There's a whole thing on Twitter. Ramadan Yamal is like how Benzema used to be Ramadan Kareem, and it's now Ramadan Yamal. So you cannot rule
He's
it.
now locked in. Yeah.
He's gone. He's gone all in now.
And you never know. In a full Camp Nou, early goal, you never know. With this Atletico team, Atletico are as capable of winning 5-0 as they are losing 5-0. So I'm still, even though I've never been so excited for a second leg of a tie that's 4-0 from the first leg, because normally you think, well, it's done, but it's not done. I think we're in for some fun on Tuesday night.
Yeah. And then just one fact before I end this segment is that Barcelona haven't lost a game at the Camp Nou since it reopened. Since Messi blessed the new Camp Nou unofficially, they haven't lost a game there. So 4-0 at the Camp Nou when you kick off is it could be overturned. They just scored 4 against Villarreal, and Villarreal and Atleti, I mean, 51 points on the league, and Atleti will have more pressure because they also have to play two competitions. Do they put their all in the Copa del Rey? Do they rest for the Tottenham fixture upcoming in the next week? So it's gonna be interesting. I mean, of course I'm going to say Barca is going to win, but let's see. Atleti cannot rule them out. He cannot, 100%. Um, so one more interesting game that happened, which is the El Gran Derbi. Sevilla took on Betis. Betis, of course, was not playing at their home stadium per se because it's under renovation, Benito Villamarin, but they played at La Cartuja, where the Copa del Rey final is going to take place, surprisingly. Did you have, did you manage to watch the game? Because I know you were watching the Arsenal game as well, right? So did you have time to watch?
I had a two screen set up, so I managed to see most of the game, and I've caught up with all the drama that followed. I love El Gran Derbi. I think for me, it's the best derby in Spain. It's like I said, there's a lot of
The El
history.
Clasico fans won't be happy hearing you say that.
Okay, let's call it the best local derby in Spain.
Local derby. Yeah, I agree. I agree.
Yeah, I think it is absolutely brilliant as a fixture. There's so much history. I lived in Sevilla near Betis for a couple of months back in the day, and it is mad. When you're in the city, when you're speaking to fans, when you're of both teams, despite Sevilla being the more historically successful side and the more globally known side, everyone's a Betis fan. Like Betis dominates the city.
Yeah.
Their fans are some of the most passionate I've ever encountered. And same with Sevilla. Both stadiums are loud, and both are two very big sides with big fan bases, big histories, a lot of colour in each stadium. And yeah, this was a brilliant derby. And for context, it was at La Cartuja, the third stadium in Sevilla.
Mhm.
Betis are redoing their stadium, so it wasn't at their usual home.
Yeah.
I'm not the biggest fan of this stadium, but I actually really enjoyed the aesthetic of it for this derby. It
Mhm.
felt like a cup final with all the fans there, all the
Yeah.
scarves and pyro, and it felt it felt like such a huge game. And there's a big reason why this was a huge game was that Betis had won the last two derbies, and Sevilla in their history have never
Never.
ever
Yeah.
lost three in a row. And they went 2-0 down in the first half. Two brilliant goals from Betis. Anthony with an overhead kick.
Anthony, that was like it came out of nowhere.
It
I
came us from nowhere.
I was not even looking at my screen. I was just like reading something. I mean, I was multitasking basically. I was watching the game and I was also like looking at some research for this podcast for today. And then suddenly I hear like Anthony with an overhead. I'm like, what? What? And then I saw it. It was like it was insane. I loved the goal. I texted you as soon as it happened. Like, hey, we got to talk about this tomorrow.
Like I kind of like looked up at that screen just as who is it? Abde ran in
Yeah, yeah,
forward
yeah.
and kind of ripped Sevilla's back line to shreds. And then it did come out of nowhere though, because you're thinking he's got his back to goal.
Yeah,
He's probably going to pass it, but
yeah,
Anthony's Anthony. You never know what you're going to get from him.
yeah.
And what a goal! Like, it must be said. I'm not an Anthony lover,
Hmm.
but what a goal! Like you can't take anything away from the quality of the finish and the audacity of it as well. And
Yeah.
all the goals in this game I thought were brilliant. And at 2-0, you're thinking Sevilla are down and out and it could get ugly. But suddenly, Alexis Sanchez, who looks like he can barely move now, he's
Yeah.
30. He it's a he runs and he finds the space, the cross comes in, and it's a brilliant header, cross goal
What a goal.
top
What a
corner. And that's the kind of intelligence you never lose as an instinctive finisher.
yeah.
His leg's not there anymore, but that's a quality you never lose it. Same with someone like Lewandowski. Now he's beyond his best years, but at times they can just find the finish that even some strikers in their prime cannot. And it gave Sevilla hope. They could not lose this game.
No.
They've been struggling all season. Their manager's in the stands, he's got a suspension. It's a bad
7
time.
games.
7
I'll
games
say that.
suspension.
I think it's a record. I think no one's gotten such a large number of matches suspended in like 10 or 12 years. I think in Spanish football, especially, I don't think anyone's ever gotten this big of a suspension. So,
Yeah.
yeah, 7 games.
It's such a long suspension that you wonder if he'll still be in a job by the time
Like, I think,
ever returns.
yeah, league is going to be like almost over by the time he comes back.
Yeah.
Took a few games.
So they have no manager. They've been pretty dire all season. They're potentially in a relegation scrap with how tight the table is. It's not been a good few years to be a Sevillista. And to then at 2-0 down in the derby, you're thinking this is a horrible time. It'll be the first ever time they lose 3 in a row to Betis. But then they recover it. And Isaac Romero with an outstanding finish at the end.
Every
That-
single goal came out of nowhere. Like you would not like all the 4 goals that came in. It was like you look away from the screen and then you suddenly look back and it's a goal. It was like,
Yeah.
even the second goal. I mean, up there, of course, for Betis, he was on fire down the wings. Like he helped in both the goals. The through ball for Fidalgo's goal came out of nowhere. And Alexis Sanchez, I saw him make the run. I was like looking at my screen, but I did not think the ball was gonna reach him. And even if it reaches, I saw that he was not in like a. Even if you're gonna attempt an header, you are not always sure because you need to like jump correctly, especially if it's a diving header. You know, you got your trajectory of your head, the movement, everything has to be like precise. And from the position he hit the ball, I was not expecting it to go in, but then I saw and the keeper's dived and he's missed it. And of course, the last goal from outside of the box, it was hit with so much venom. Like he could lose his hand trying to stop that.
Yeah. And with the left foot, with the trajectory of the ball, with the way it curled, that's almost a goal you expect Anthony to score. That's kind of like the one
Exactly.
you associate with him. But
Yeah, yeah.
he's like crashed it on his head. So
But the changes
Six,
were,
yeah.
yeah, the changes worked magnificently. I mean, you have to. think whether it was actually the caretaker manager Javi Martinez who made those calls at halftime to get Oso on for Suazo and Eshuke on for Carmona, or was it Almeida trying to like communicate from the stands from like his own setup with the color? We will never know. But the only bad game that Javi Martinez has had is the 3-0 loss to Levante, which was unexpected because Levante is also at the bottom of La Liga, 19th, if I'm not wrong. And Sevilla, I know they are, as you mentioned, with how tight the table is, they're in a relegation scrap, but you expect them to beat Levante, I think. But
Yeah, I mean, that was the first ever time Sevilla have lost at home by 3 goals to the side that started the day bottom.
yeah.
And that Sevilla Levante game was mental. That was Luis Castro's first game in charge at Levante, so a bit of new manager bounce.
Mhm.
Former Sevilla player Carlos Alvarez was tearing them apart. He's a player I really like because I really like technically gifted, nimble Spanish midfielders. That's partly why I love La Liga, and he's one of
Mhm.
those kinds of players. And yeah, that game was astonishing because Sevilla's home results, they've beaten Barcelona 4-1 and lost to Levante 3-0. There's chaos there.
Yeah,
But that
it's
was a
like
really bad day for Sevilla. There were protests. It looked ugly.
yeah,
And
yeah.
at, coming out of that game, I thought Sevilla could be in serious, serious relegation trouble.
Mhm.
Now they climbed up the table a little bit, but it's just still so
You
tight.
can't call it.
All
Yeah,
it
you
takes,
can't call it.
you, yeah, exactly. So all it takes is a few bad games, and you're suddenly right back in there.
Yeah.
And with Levante now winning this weekend, and the teams around the bottom, Rayo, are picking up points again. Alaves, it's all just so unpredictable, and you can't rule Sevilla. You can't say they're safe.
Mhm. Talking about teams that are not safe, mentioning Valencia, we have to mention Valencia and the thing that happened at the, at the game. Like, I did not manage to catch the game, but as soon as I logged on to my social media, every single page was talking about Jose Gaya. Take us through that moment. Tell me what the hell was Gaya thinking when that happened?
So for people who didn't watch Valencia against Osasuna, Valencia won 1-0, and winning is not something they do very often. They nearly didn't. They scored through a penalty from Largi Ramazani.
Yes.
They nearly didn't. And the reason for this is that as Ramazani dispatched this penalty with such ease and aplomb, and you're thinking, what brilliant
It
penalty
was a
save.
good penalty. Yeah, it was such a good.
His captain, Jose Gaya, Valencia legend, very experienced player, is jumping around in the penalty area like
He was so high off the ground, like he has no business being there. Like if like look at the photo, is like so high off the ground and so far ahead. Like I think by the time the penalty was taken, he was ahead or almost at the same level as the penalty taker. So like I have no idea what he was thinking.
well, for me, encroachment during a penalty is one of the most stupid things you can do,
Yeah,
especially in an era where there's VAR. So
yeah,
all you're
yeah,
doing is you're going to rule out your own team's goal. So just
yeah,
stay out the box.
yeah.
And you'd expect maybe, I don't know, an 18-year-old youngster to forget about that rule.
Mhm.
But not only does Gaia forget about it and enter the box, but he's flapping around in there. And if you see Ramazani's face when he realizes his penalty's
Yeah,
now,
yeah.
because his captain is jumping around
Oh my
trying
god,
to
bro.
glean. You just
Soul,
look at him like, what are
yeah,
you doing?
soul kicker,
It's just hilarious. And fair play to Ramazani because
man.
I think retaking a penalty is one of the hardest things you can do in
Mhm.
terms of the mental aspect of football, where
Mm.
you line up to take the pen, you trying to suss out where the goalie is going and trying to get in his head. You do it
Mhm.
once, then suddenly you have to do it again. Do you
Yeah.
go in the same spot? Do you go for
It messes up
a
your whole concentration, your
yeah,
focus.
and when it comes after something as comically ridiculous as what Kayar did,
Yeah, no.
then you're thinking, does he even want to give the penalty to someone else? But no,
Exactly,
Ramadani
yeah.
took it and scored it, and he's won a lot of points for Valencia despite not playing as much
Right.
as
Right.
some of his teammates. And I think he should be playing more. Leeds fans said the same about him last season under Daniel Farke.
Mhm.
And yeah, I think he's now he is someone who can keep Valencia up if he continues to
Continues performing, yeah.
with his two-man kind of partnership with Umar Sadiq, where it's just speed, chaos, and you don't know how to defend against Umar Sadiq and Ramazani because they don't know how to attack. But it's they've injected life into an otherwise dead Valencia team.
Mhm.
And yeah, he's overcome a ridiculous. We pin this out as in this podcast, we're going to pick out our moment of the week.
Yeah.
We picked out Gaia
Yeah.
jumping around in the box.
Had to do this. Yeah, we had to.
Out. That's our moment of the week. And
Yeah.
fair play to the teammate for overcoming it and winning Valencia the points.
100%. Talking about Valencia, I mean, you live in Valencia, and when I was in Spain, I used to live in Madrid. So let's move away from the football. I think we've talked about the football in this part in the first episode. Now, let's just talk about ourselves for a bit before we wrap this up. As you mentioned, we both are sports journalists. We've both been in the world of Spanish football for a while. We both lived in Spain. You're still living in Spain. I lived in Spain, and I'm hoping to go back soon. We both speak Spanish. Yo hablo español, no sé sobre ti. Sí, yo hablo español. Sí. Um, have you ever had a moment eh, in Spain where you were like, okay, this is what, when I think about working in Spain or living in Spain or working in Spanish football, have you ever had a moment that you were like, okay, yeah, this is what I envisioned when I started my journey, started my media career? Have you ever had a thing like that?
Yeah, and it comes to two teams we've talked about a lot today: Villarreal, my team, and Real Betis.
Mhm.
And it was a game earlier this season, in September, October. My memory fails me, but it was Villarreal 2-2 Real Betis. I went to the game. I got on a train from Valencia, headed over. It's about a 45-minute journey.
Mhm.
Um, and it's a journey I've done loads, but this was the most fun I've ever had with Villarreal. And the reason for it is that I had a little party with the Real Betis fans before. I was walking around in my Villarreal t-shirt around the corner from the stadium, kind of getting a beer and trying to, make some content, do some videos,
Yeah, yeah.
the lineups. And that was also the game in which both sets of teams protested against the fact that Villarreal were going to play in Miami.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah. I was out that time.
so that would feed into why it was such a proud career moment.
Mm.
But this was also some of the most fun I've ever had at a football stadium because I was walking around in my Villarreal shirt with a few hundred Betis fans there,
Mhm.
all drinking, setting off flares with the drums, with the megaphone. That's what Betis do. A few of them see me and call me to come over. I'm chatting to them in broken Spanish.
Mhm.
You couldn't believe that someone from London who is an Arsenal fan
Yeah.
is also walking around in the Villarreal top, going to that game. They can believe it. They were loving it. And it got to a
Yeah.
point where the main kind of Betis guys, I don't call them ultras, I call them maybe like animacion, like singing
Mm.
section,
Yeah, yeah.
the away fans. They got me on the drums and the microphone chanting Betis songs. One of their pans will beer and pours it down my throat. One of them offers me a cigarette. I don't smoke, so I was like,
Oh, man.
um, and yeah, I'm on the drums. I'm banging the drums. I've got the megaphone. I've I've got my mini microphone out, trying to kind of interview fans about
Yeah, yeah.
the concept of playing in Miami, and a few of
Yeah,
them
yeah.
working to talk. But in amongst all the chaos, I couldn't really. I'm there trying to in a language I'm not fully fluent in.
Yeah,
Are you
yeah.
trying to speak to people about a potentially serious, sensitive topic?
Yeah.
Meanwhile, they're chucking Betis shirts on me and getting me on the drums and throwing fears at me. It was brilliant. It was absolutely
Oh, man.
brilliant. And then
Yeah.
that was really fun as a fan.
Yeah.
Then coming into the game, covering the protest, and we then did a joint video for those who follow us on
Yeah, yeah, we did here.
media. And my footage of the protest went viral because La Liga were blocking all the games that weekend. La Liga were blocking
Yeah.
broadcasts. So the only way you could see how Villarreal and Betis, the players, protested against the decision was through my video.
Mhm.
And we posted that together on Instagram and it got over 250,000 views.
Yeah.
And so that also felt to me that I was doing something. I was going out my way to cover the story,
Mm,
which not many others in England did.
yeah,
And
definitely.
that to me felt like a proud moment. That felt like me using my expertise of Villarreal, of Spanish football, the fact that I'm in Valencia to cover an issue that was talked about globally. The Miami game was a
Mm.
big, big issue. And so that whole day, I remember coming back on a train from Villarreal. It was a 2-2 draw, it was a mental game. And I was thinking, what a brilliant day that was. And that was something where I thought, yeah, the more
This is it.
I
Yeah.
the more I wanna do more stuff like that. I wanna
Yeah.
go to more stadiums. I wanna go to more games. I wanna speak to more fans. I wanna,
Yeah.
well, drink beers and get on the microphone, but I also wanna, yeah, not just talk tactics. For those who follow me, like, I'm a big tactics guy, I'm a big stats guy. I've worked with some stat companies before. Also, but I'm so big into football
Yeah.
culture and the culture of Spanish football. And yeah, it is just brilliant. Like, my motto is go to games. Like,
Oh,
it's
100%.
obviously difficult wherever you are, and you're obviously not in Spain as anymore.
Yeah,
But when you get back here, go to games, go to
definitely.
any level in Spain, any
No,
stadium in
I
Spain,
mean,
go.
I used to live in Madrid, and those of you don't know, I used to work at Real Madrid TV, and so I used to get access to a bunch of the games for Real Madrid. So I watched Real Madrid Rayo Vallecano in 2023. I watched the Madrid Derby. Then I went out of my way to, even if I did not get tickets to matches for, like, let's say, Rayo Vallecano or Getafe, Leganes, Atletico Madrid. My house was situated right between the two stadiums. So 20 minutes left is Atletico Madrid Stadium, 20 minutes to the right is Santiago Bernabeu. So I was in a, like, a prime location. And I tried to, even if I did not get match tickets, I always tried to, like, hang around the stadium, take in the atmosphere, like the fan culture, and just like have that moment, that okay, shit, I made it. I'm in Spain. I used to see these visuals only in TV, like, hoping one day I could, like, experience maybe 30% of it. And then at some day I just realized, okay, I'm here. And I'm sure it's like a surreal feeling for people like us. We make this effort to move to another country, to talk about our passions, to work in our passions, and it's just a wonderful experience. And now look at us. We were starting a podcast together, of which we just completed the first episode. I think it was a wonderful 45 minutes that we had, and I think we covered almost all the important things that happened this week. Of course, the match week isn't over. Real Madrid is playing tonight against Getafe, so local Madrid derby in the sense you can call it. But should be easy for Real Madrid. Like Getafe, Bordalas ball. I know he's like revered in Getafe. He's like an icon with his swag glasses and that slicked hairstyle that he's got now. I mean, he's revered in Getafe, but I think it should be easy. And then it's the Copa del Rey tomorrow, and I think a lot of football will happen by the time we meet again, which will be next Monday. So every Monday, Tiki Tapas podcast will arrive to your screens if you're watching it on YouTube, on your screens, and if you're listening, then Spotify, Apple Music, a bunch of streaming platforms. You will. I mean, we haven't secured the audio distribution yet, but we are in the process of doing that. So, but it's definitely going to be on YouTube every Mondays, which would be around evening Spanish, European, Central European time around the evening. So, yeah, wonderful, Rahul. How do you think the podcast went?
Really good. And I think it'd be worth including the fact that we set out to start this podcast for a few reasons. We're both journalists, we both cover Spanish football, we both love Spanish football. The coverage of Spanish football is something we have a problem with,
Mhm.
in that La Liga and their broadcast rights, that's a whole other episode in
Oh
itself.
yeah.
But just even the English language coverage, and I'm not criticizing anyone. There are some
Hmm.
brilliant people covering Spanish football, but
Shout out to the
really,
Spanish Football Podcast first. I
oh
would
yeah,
like to shout out Alex Kirkland, especially because he was my professor at university. and I did my first podcast under him. So he kind of trained me in radio and podcasting. So shout out, Alex. Hope to catch you over coffee sometime in the future. Anyways, continue.
Yeah, and we've got a few exciting guests lined up as well.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Our main aim is to cover the teams that are not often talked about. And I know we've contradicted that a bit by talking about Barcelona,
Mhm.
but we found a lot of the English language coverage of La Liga is too Madrid focused, too
Mhm.
Barcelona focused, and especially the English coverage too Bellingham focused, too Rashford focused. There's a lot of other teams in Spain. There's a lot of other players in Spain. And
Mhm.
so we want to talk tactics about Espanyol or Alaves. Why can't we?
Mm.
And that's
I
what
mean,
we want to do. And
yeah,
you're going to hear
no,
more from us about the teams that
definitely,
you
definitely.
might not hear about elsewhere. So
I wanted to talk about Majorca and their new manager today, but we ran out of time. So maybe next time, next episode, we'll see how Majorca perform over
well,
this week
and
and
Emichelis.
Michelle is, yeah, after Monterrey and River Plate, which you have an exciting story to share as well about River Plate and the time you saw him manage in Argentina. But we'll keep that for the next episode. So if you want to hear all these stories, Rahul has got a bunch of stories from all over the world with his experience in chasing football around the globe. So if you want to hear all these stories and just hang around with us as we try to build a community for Spanish football enthusiasts, make sure that you wherever you're watching, you follow us, you subscribe to us. And as we build this podcast over the coming weeks, months, and hopefully years, we get to connect with a lot of like minded people and just talk about this beautiful game that we love and this beautiful country that has given us so much love and the love we try to give it back. So thank you, Rahul. It was a wonderful time as well. We finally got it off the ground after what 2 months of planning. There was always like a trip involved. There was like some distraction. I was on holiday. Something would happen. You had visa issues, but we finally got it off the
Yeah.
ground, and we'll see you guys next week, same time. It was a pleasure talking to you guys. And any ending words you want to say, Rahul? Maybe in Spanish. You want to do an outro in Spanish?
Well, way to put me on the spot there, but all I'll say is hasta pronto.
Hasta pronto. Sí, sí, sí. Hasta la próxima semana. Okay. Ciao. Goodbye. See you guys next week. Bye bye.